Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mr. Albert Venehan, the chair of the Student and Family here in Bridgeport School. I'd like to say thank you for all the staff and board members and everyone and parents and students that are watching this meeting. Um, I'm very glad that everyone is aboard. Like I said, introduce myself, Mr. Benehan, the chair of the Student Family. I want everyone to introduce yourself, please, to base for the record.
Bobby Brown, students and family member.
Hernan Illingworth, vice president of the board.
I would like the staff, who's been part of this meeting, introduce yourself too, please.
Herminio Planas, executive director of elementary education and mathematics.
And I'm the I'm the young director of social work services for BOE.
And Nadira Clark, director of grants development and management.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of this meeting. Appreciate your time. I know we are busy. We try to do so many things at the same time, but I know we're trying to put everything update to what it is. So first on the agenda, give me 1 second, please, because I try to work with my phone and a tablet at the same time. Well, the first one I mean, a true proof of the minutes. And the only board we have it right now in the committee, Miss Bobby Brown.
Make a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of, committee meeting minutes of last month's committee meeting. I don't remember the date, so I couldn't say the date.
I will get, just because Mr. Joe's not here, I'm going to, for the record, second it. So no abstention, nor nothing to change, Ms. Brown. You don't have any question about the minutes?
No.
Okay, so we can forward to the second. In the board, in the agenda, so give me 1 second, please. Try to organize this. All right, the last I know Mr. Planas, you give me some information and ask, and I know that Ms. Nadira Clark, she's here in the meeting. Thank you for being with us. About the May 1st was the last day to submit of the PTSO impact the budget, and I see you receive I received from you the update how much money all the PAC president and PTSO president used the money. And that's the last update we have for now, right?
Correct. This report was run yesterday. It's Nadira Clark speaking. The report was run midday yesterday, and again, everybody was told they needed to get all their orders in by the 1st of May. So everything that we've received by then are either fully processed or in the process of being processed. So they're all expecting delivery by 6:30, which is the mandate.
Okay. So that's me. Whatever money they got left, that's the money they're going to use to roll over for the school when we come back. Plus the whatever the Title I and the grant that will give it to them, right?
So I'm sorry, I did not attend that board meeting. I know it was discussed at our last Students and Families, was a decision made by the superintendent to roll over any remaining monies to the schools. I thought it was just the larger board for the PAC meeting for the parents.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, the leftover money is supposed to be used for parent engagement activities that the district as a whole will do, not necessarily
individually for the schools.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. I know I wasn't at the meeting, but I got a very brief from Ms. Siegel. I wanted to make sure I didn't misunderstand.
I do have a question, if I may, Mr. Chair. So how much can you give me, is it possible for you to give us a total money between all the schools that was left over?
Yes, I have that with me, Mr. Hernan.
Oh, okay.
I have right now. We got left over all school $5,209.97.
Between all the schools?
All schools, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
that's
sorry.
not that bad.
Excuse me, Mr. Benahan, that's just for the elementary schools. There's $1,143.29 also at the high school. So in total, we have $6,353.26.
That's not that bad.
I was almost to tell that, but you went forward for me. I will try
Yep.
to say private school first and then the
Yep.
high school. But yeah, that's the total. Right now, I see in the budget thing, a lot of schools, they use the money, and I'm very happy they use it. The only Louis Marine school, left over like a 1,000, but I'm very glad that everyone used the money, at least. At the last moment, I know they did a lot of things, but they used the money. That's a good thing.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you have any question, Miss Brown?
No questions. I think we covered it pretty much from last meeting. So I was, doing the numbers as well. So thank you, Ms. Clark.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hernan, do you have any question?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So now we're gonna the update bullying. So thank you, Ms. Clark, for your information to clarify. I'm very glad that you did a good job. Your good information you gave it to us. We appreciate all your hard work. I know you are very busy, but at least that's the only thing I really cared about. All parents, then PAG and PTSO using the money. I appreciate
Yes.
your information.
Yes, they did. And thanks to my staff, because we're all working behind the
Of
scenes,
course.
making sure everything is getting done.
Sure.
It goes without saying.
I'm sorry. When I say,
No,
I want to for yourself, I say for everyone.
I know you're talking about all of us in 324. Thank you, Mr. Benahan.
Yes.
Thank you to the rest of the team. If you do not need me, I will be signing off.
Yes, we're okay that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Stay
you.
well, everyone.
You too.
Thanks.
All
Bye-bye.
right. The third in our agenda, Mr. John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. So
Good.
I'm to present. Oh, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, that's okay. A long time to see you. At least I see you in a video.
Yes.
Yes, the long time no see.
Right.
Social distancing.
All right, Mr. John. I would like, because I know we don't have no schools and stuff like that, but the last time before all this situation happened with the coronavirus, we will almost bring the bullying thing, because I know a lot of things. This bullying thing is getting every time, every day, every second is getting terrible, and bad. I know what's happened before this coronavirus. A big situation happened. I know Mr. Testani and the board member fixed the situation with the mom and the student. I'm very glad. But this is a situation that will never stop. They will never stop, and this is something that we need to do something. When I say need to do something, what is the consequence for all these kids start with bullying, especially with the parents? So I know I want you to ask everything I'm watching in my cell phone. I apologize if I take a little long time. It's a lot of information you send it to us, so you can give me a little update of the
I can share the
bullying.
information with you via my screen to show
Yes,
you. Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yep. So let me get started on this.
You see, Ms. Brown, she like that.
Yes, this is the only way I work. Okay. So this is a school climate update. Wait, here we go. So 9 schools this is the confirmed bully cases for 2019-2020. So on the left-hand side, we have 9 schools that reported bully cases, and we only have 3.
You don't see it yet.
Oh, you don't see it?
No, me either.
Yeah.
This technology is not working. Hold on 1 second.
We were excited, but we don't see nothing.
Okay, here we go. Can you see it now?
Here you
Yes.
go.
Yes.
There we go. All right, let me start now. So on the left, you see in red, it says elementary schools. These are the 9 schools that reported bully cases throughout the 2019-20 school year. And these numbers are up until March, when we went to distant learning. So there's no numbers after we went for distant learning because kids were at home. And the numbers at the bottom are the high schools. There's only 3 reporting high schools that reported. At the bottom, you'll see on the first column, the number 11 accounts for the protected class students. Protected class students are students that are the race, gender, ethnicity, all of those protected classes were bullied under that category. The non-protected classes are bullied just because they wanted to bully the students. So these are the confirmed cases only. So that all these numbers total up to 35, and that is as of March. Any questions on this side before I go? I'm going to compare last year's numbers to this year's numbers in these subsequent slides.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, but you just said it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
I have a question also,
Yes.
and I don't know if you're gonna show it later,
Mhm.
but do you have the number of reported cases? Because I know you're only showing as confirmed cases.
Oh, the
But
reported cases are coming up.
do you have a number of how many cases were reported but not confirmed?
Absolutely. It's coming up. You read my mind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I apologize.
It's okay. So these numbers are the allegations. So on the left-hand side, you will see the elementary schools. We have 29 schools reporting, which is up from last year. So more schools are reporting student allegations. And we have the high schools where we have all but one reported cases of student allegations. So these are the cases, and they all lead up to 142 cases. I'm going to go to the next one because this one shows the comparison between last year and this year, I believe. Yes. So student allegations in all of 2018-19 were 383. As of March of last year, we were ahead of that number at that time. So right now it's just showing 142. That's showing the number that has stopped as of distant learning in mid-March. Questions about that?
Yes.
Yep.
I have one too.
Yep. Okay.
2018, 2019, that's the whole year, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then this one, 2019, 2020, it stopped in March.
Correct.
So that's
Because
mean it just in case if we was not in the situation of coronavirus, maybe that number would can
Oh,
maybe up, right?
it would up exponentially because studies have shown, especially in Bridgeport, that when it gets warmer, we have lots more cases of bullying. So this number is actually ticked a little higher, not that much, from March of the following year. So yes, we would have had a lot more cases than that, allegation cases.
All right, Ms. Brown, you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to. I know, in spite of, or because of coronavirus, but with the numbers, what are we doing to decrease, or unless you're gonna get to that in the presentation, like what are some of the styles and tactics that we are using to decrease bullying in our school system? Because I was looking at the high school students, and then I noticed that certain schools had bigger numbers than other schools, and I'm assuming it's because we have more students in those particular schools. I could be wrong. But what are we doing to decrease that number, session wise, or, outside of the counseling, like what other things we have going on? Well, does we as a committee need to, see if we can be a little bit more creative, or I don't even know if that's our job. I'm just there.
Well, so it's very refreshing that you said that because I've had a tough time where we've shown a reduction and then people are saying that those numbers are not right. So I had to be very accurate and create some tools so that we can get the actual snapshot number so that people can know exactly what's going on. I would love for the numbers to go down, and I'm glad that you would love the numbers to go down, but I'm just happy that the new board is with me on that, because there are things that we're doing. There's a lot of SCL things that we're doing, and there's also something we're doing with if a student is suspended or disciplined for a bullying situation, there's a whole process for them to return back to school with some restorative practices that we have not done prior, but that we're putting in place when school resumes. So we were in the beginning stages of doing that before the corona hit, but now we can actually put those in place. So I'm glad that when the numbers start going down, you'll be happy with it, because that was not the case years ago.
Yeah.
Mr.
No,
Chair?
I feel,
Yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Brown. Finish. You can finish.
Oh, I feel that the numbers decreasing will make us happy, only because students will feel more safer. Because then my follow-up question would be, how are we responding service-wise to those students who may have shared that they are being bullied, And now that, once the bully finds out that someone has snitched on them, what are we doing for those students once they realize that someone is onto them about the bullying that's taking place in their school for that particular? So it's a two-way street. We got to make sure that we keep the numbers down, but we also need to keep those students, safe and protected and feel okay with coming back to school, knowing that the bully will soon return to school, So
Yep.
I'm interested to see the process
Mhm.
and then how we as a board, can help support that process, because I'm like Mr. Albert. I feel very strongly about this topic, only because, I was bullied in school. So I want to make sure that we keep the numbers down, but we also keep those that are reporting the cases safe and feel okay with returning back.
Okay, so there's two things I want to say to that. So the one thing is we're working hard on getting the community to understand what actual substantiated bullying is, because there was this whole concept that if my kid was being picked on, that he's being bullied and this whole world needs to stop and we need to form an investigation. And when we find out and dig deeper, we find out that there's mutual things going on where we see each student going back at each other. So now to your real question, the actual substantiated bullying cases, we've have done safety plans for all the students. So when the students come back, A, they're reporting anonymously. B, we bring the parent in so that the parent is aware of the safety plan that we're developing for the student. Sometimes the student can leave earlier from school. Sometimes the bully is on a modified plan where that bully leaves earlier from class to get to the other class. So there's things that we do. So once we find out you're being bullied and it's substantiated, we take that kid under our wing and make sure that that kid, not in all cases, and we want to tighten that up, but we make sure that the safety plan is there for all those students. We have safety plans for each and every one of those students. And then if it rises to that occasion, they then come to my office and then I investigate it to make sure that I go to those meetings to ensure that they're doing the proper things around putting things in place to keep that student safe while they're in school and when they're not in school.
Mr. Young, a question.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hernandez. Go ahead, Mr. Hernandez. Oh, hold on. Ms. Brown, you done with your question, Bobby?
Yes, that's good. He answered it. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Hernandez. Sorry.
Okay, thanks. And the first thing I want to say, Mr. Young, I know, I have probably been a little bit of a critic in the past years.
I totally get it.
And believe me, I know the work that you and your staff and your department has done over the last year and a half or so in putting things in place. I totally get it. I totally appreciate it. And I know that is one of the reasons why the numbers are lower. And I'm sure that the numbers will continue to get lower. My only thing is, it's like I just question where, we have to admit, I mean, Bridgeport, there's a lot of bullying going on. Now, is a lot of it confirmed? No, not really. And and you're right. That's what the community has to understand, and that's what parents have to understand. What necessarily means confirmed, and that is something of discretion.
Mhm.
And I'll share a little story with that, and that's why I'm such a critic, is because now over just this school year alone, I've heard at least 2, 3 times, if not even a little bit more, about certain incidents at Clater School. But then I only see one reported case. So my question is, and I totally is, I don't want the board to create this message as we're looking at these numbers as like we got you and we're going after those schools who are reporting high numbers. That's not the case. The only way to really address our bullying issues is by really looking at the data and looking at solid numbers. It doesn't matter if one school has 10 or another school
Right.
has 50.
Right.
If the problem is we have to address, and what can we do different on that school that has 50 reported cases. Now, and that's what bothers me, and that's why I think that some principals may be wary of reporting certain incidents because they don't want that to be a reflection on them or their school. And that's the message that we need to fix, because I think that's what's been happening in years previous, that we're really harping on these numbers, and we're really like, and we don't need to do that. But what we need to do is put programs in place like your department has in the last year or so, to address these issues. Now, the
Right.
other thing is, is discretion. And I'll share a story with my daughter in seventh grade. She was being picked on by this boy. And in one incident, this boy threw a chair off the stage
Wow.
at her. And the vice principal at the time, what she told me is, oh, I think he just likes her.
Oh yeah, no.
So I'm sorry.
Mm.
This boy, there's a track record of this boy picking on her the whole school year, and then she could have seriously got hurt. But you're telling me that wasn't a confirmed case? That wasn't considered bullying? Because the,
How
the
how long
because
ago?
the
When was-
assistant principal, her discretion was, her opinion
mm,
was,
mm.
oh, he just likes her.
Yeah, that's not.
No, I'm
That's
sorry.
not.
See, to
Mm.
me, my definition of bullying, it's up to the victim. It's up to the boy, the girl, the young, whatever. If she or he feels they're being bullied, they're a victim. And we need to treat that as bullying, not necessarily if it's really confirmed or it's not. If
Right. That's what I
someone
was
feels they're getting picked on, we
saying.
need to treat that just as serious as a confirmed case that we go by the state statutes, or what tells us what a confirmed case is. I hope I didn't go on, but
No, no, good,
just
but
wanted
you're
to
I
share
saying,
that.
agree. I agree with you, Mr. Hernan, and I'm going to under you, Mr. Hernan, and you take a lot of words from my mouth, and it is true because Mr. Young. Before we go to this coronavirus situation, it was a big issue happening with one of the students, and you was part of that. That
yes, I was.
having that student email us, break my heart because before that leader, I'm a parent. I got three boys, and I know one of my boys was very bullying, and I had to step in like a parent to defend my son because I'm Mr. Hernan. Sometimes the staff and the teachers they're not doing the job the way it's supposed to be. And I'm very honest to say this because we in the district for 20 years, I see so many things about bullying. And Mr. Young, sometimes I email you for years back situation happened with bullying things, people and kids that are sometimes 12, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I have my parents calling me, Mr. Bennett, I need your help. My son is having this problem, blah, blah, blah. And I have to jump in, because parents sometimes they need and looking for the help for the school, and the school's not helping the way it's supposed to be. And I'm maybe getting tired by that. And I'm going, Mr. Hernan, say that because before leaders, we parents, we know all the students have some situation, and they're very stressful. I know a lot of parents, a lot of family, Mr. Young, and everyone that they very stressful about the bullying, and then in the school they're not doing nothing. I know, Mr. Young, you're doing your job, the way the protocol, the policy, the what it is, but they need to have something more deep because sometimes the way the students have the consequence, parents have to have the consequence because sometimes parents they know that your son or your daughter is bullying and they don't
Absolutely.
do nothing. They don't do it acting like a stop.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, God is my witness. I got three boys, and I guarantee you 100% that my kids will never bully somebody because they know how that is about the situation about bullying. And when I do my comparing convention, what is the first workshop? Bullying because it's very stressful. It's very stressful. Break my heart because, like I told you, I'm a dad, and see some students say, "I don't want to lead no more. I'm very stressful. This person is bullying me." Mr. Young, I can tell you, Renee, for the record, with my when I did worse with the mother of my kid, my son wanted to kill himself because he was stressful. He would, and I have the paper when he said, "I want to kill myself because my parents divorced." The teacher, thank God, and God bless her. She called me right away. So from that day, my son had to say he want to kill himself because he was bullying in the school. I make action, and I promise to you, I will fight through this bullying thing because there has to be a something. The parents have to have consequence, not only the students. Because, like I said, we got parents. They know, and they're not doing the job. I know you and your department, your staff, they doing the job and they're doing the protocol the way it's supposed to be, and I respect that and thank you that. But it had to be something more deep. We need to work together to have something more deep.
Okay. I am not responsible for parents. I can only I can't do it. But I do have to say, though, I'm not going to talk about an individual case, but the case you're speaking of, there were other circumstances where that was not bullying. So I want to caution people that if you receive information, that's one side of the story. It's my job to uncover the other side. And
Yeah, I know.
uncover the other side, and we found out that wasn't the case. So you can hear cases that are horrific and things like that. I'm not talking about your particular case,
Yeah.
but you'll hear a case, but then I want to hear the underlying things
Yeah,
about
both sides. Yeah, I agree.
and because if it's not your student, someone else's kid is being ever foreseen at the state level in a document as being a bully. Their name is memorialized as a bully. So I want to make sure that I'm very sure that this kid is actually should be labeled forever a bully in the eyes of the state of Connecticut, because that can carry on for a long time. So I'm very passionate about bullying too. My kids also went through the city of Bridgeport schools, and I'm very passionate about people being investigated, people being believed, but also let's investigate and see what's going on and see how we can help the students. I have one last slide, and then I'll take some more questions. One last slide. Let me. I think you have it in front of you. It's just comparing the cases from last year to this year, substantiated cases. So last year, substantiated cases were 55. In March, there were 35. So that should tell you that's a big step from March to June. So there would have been a lot more cases from March to June. So all of last year was 55 cases total. And as of March of this year, it was 35. So we were on the right track with that one. So those were confirmed, substantiated cases.
So, Mr. Young, the 2018-2019 55, that's the whole school year. And
The whole
now
school year.
from let's see, when we come back August 2019 to now,
So March.
okay. We are, and I know, you know something, I know the numbers different, but they scare me a lot. I'm telling you, I wish that number be low, but we had to be on top. We had to be careful. And like I say, you are doing your job the way it's supposed to be protocol, but they need to have something more strong to stop this bullying thing, especially with the parents. Parents, they're not responsible to stop our kid, doing the job. Something had to be a law, and if I have to go to the state and find out, one of the state rep or something, do something more deep, trust me that I would do it. That I would do it because I know this not gonna stop. This not gonna stop.
Yeah, can I just add something?
Yes, Mr. Hernan.
And and just to piggyback off a little bit of what you were saying, Albert, I mean, I agree with you 100% on everything, and it's something, this is where you get me going, because bullying is something that it's a problem, and I know we're going in the right direction, and I'm so happy that we are. But what we need to do is to ensure that we have a system of integrity when someone reports a case of bullying. And I personally would like to get that out of the principal's hands as far as the reporting, and those numbers, and how we do that as a district, I don't know, but that's what I would like. And the other thing is, I know that there are state guidelines that provide us the definition of bullying, and I respect that, and I think we should obey all that. But I would love for our district to go over and beyond and say, you know what, the state of Connecticut, we will abide by your definition, but we also want to adopt a zero tolerance bullying policy, and that includes every single case that gets reported. We are going to treat it as if it was a confirmed case. That's what I would like to see. That way, we know that all cases are being reported and all cases are being investigated. Like you said, Mr. Young, that we don't want to label students as bullies when they necessarily may not be. But when we treat every single case as a legitimate, confirmed case in our own mind, in our own way of we believe things in Bridgeport, then I believe we can do thorough investigations. And then if it meets that guideline, then that's when it gets reported to the state wise. But I would personally love to see a true zero tolerance policy in Bridgeport. And I know we're getting there. I know we are. But that's what I'm saying. And like the whole point I said before, and I just can't seem to get off it, is I think we need to send a message out to our schools that, you know what, every time we report a bully, it's not a bad thing. We need to investigate those because it's right. We don't want to create that, oh, we got you. Central High School, you got too many, we're going after you. And it's one thing I always say, and it comes to, you know, it's the data. How do we look at data to me, I compare it to when we look at the data for suspensions. If I was the principal, I can make my suspension numbers drop instantly. You know what I have to do? I just stop suspending. My numbers will drop significantly. But are those true? Is that true data? No. I'm just tolerating all types of behavior to make my numbers look well as a school building leader. So I am not labeled as, oh my God, look at all the suspensions you're having at your school. Those are the things, and I know I'm probably going off a rant, but those are the things where, and I know it happens in the bullying process, the bullying reporting. And that's why I think we see some schools that I know that number, like, you know, that one school should be higher than one. I know it should be, but it is what it is. But I think we need to develop a reporting system with integrity so people feel confident that when they are making a report, it's going to be taken seriously, and a true investigation will take place, just like if it was, and it shouldn't be at discretion. I'm sorry, but a principal or teacher should not have discretion. It should be, you know, black and white. If a student feels they're getting bullied, there's a reason. Sorry, that's
I have
it.
a question.
No more.
Is that something,
Yes, Ms. Bobby Brown.
Mr. Young, is that something we can actually put together and do? You know, put a report to, not necessarily a report, but make that type of statement for all the schools. Because I agree with Mr. Ellingsworth. I have, you know, I work with girls in the school system. I have a lot of girls who may tell me that they're being bullied, but they haven't went necessarily and reported because of whatever reason, but doesn't mean it's not happening.
Correct.
But if we put that no tolerance, I think across the board, it probably was a different message. Is that something we can do?
Well, see,
Or has been done?
well, we are supposed to be a zero tolerance policy. The zero tolerance policy is about when we have a substantiated bully case. So I think we want the same thing, but I think we're speaking about two different things. Zero tolerance means that we're not going to ever allow a student to be bullied. That's the zero tolerance policy. So if they're labeled a bully, then we have to do our steps after they're labeled a bully to make sure we do everything we need to do for that student. I think what you're talking about is that if an allegation comes up, and what Illingsworth is talking about is if an allegation comes up, that it's investigated in the same manner as if it were a substantiated bully case. And that, yes, we can do. That's something we can do. We can inform our school climate officers that are each school. It's
Right.
not the principal, but usually it is someone that holds an 092, because an 092 has to be able to discipline the student. So those school climate officers are the ones that investigate that, so they can hold more weight than, let's say, a principal, and say to the principal, this is what I think that should happen, and then we can go from there. But we can't just recreate the actual legal definition of bullying. We can't do anything like that, but we can try to investigate more, of course.
No, yeah, I don't mean recreate anything in that manner. I'm just saying more, you know, make that, just like you said, like if it is an allegation, to it, for it to be taken serious, the moment that is brought to their attention, so that, you know, if anything, I think it would, you know, make that student feel like they're being taken serious on this particular topic, no matter what it looks like. It could be something small, but you guys will be able to understand and, you know, break it up and see where everything needs to be as far as that student is.
Yep. So when we do our trainings, I do vow to you that when we do our training on school climate this year, we will emphasize that those school climate officers should investigate all cases of bullying, whether it's substantiated or not. Yeah, we can do that.
Sorry, who said you say what officer?
Oh, the school climate officer. That's what the actual bullying word is. It's called a school climate. So when I say school climate update, that means bullying.
Yeah. Okay. I
and
understand.
you also asked for some other data. You asked for cyberbullying data. So
Yeah.
the state doesn't ask for cyberbullying data, so that's not one of the metrics that they have in Power School for someone to click to give statistics to the state. So I'm not able to pull that. So what I can do going forward, though, is that we can try to work with data management to see if that can be a drop-down menu, so we can start pulling data for that specifically. The cyberbullying, we don't pull for that. We just pull for bullying as a whole. We don't parse it out that this is bullying as a result of this or that. It just says protected or non-protected class. But we can add cyberbullying. I can see if we can add cyberbullying.
I understand everything you said, Mr. Yan, and I respect that, and I'm very glad you're doing the job that was supposed to be. And I know everyone respect that and understand that. When I see too much information and the school's not acting the way it's supposed to be to stop the bullying, that's a big issue. Because you can say this is the law, this is the policy, this is the protocol, you have to do this, you have to do that, and blah 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 blah. But what is the consequence for that child and for the parents? To be sure you're not gonna coming back to get up a bullying, because you're gonna have a worse consequence. That's my big issue. That's my big thing. Because you can sign this paper, you have this, you have that, you have to talk with this person, you have to have the, a lot of things. But what is the big consequence for this student and for this parent? Because I believe you 100%. When the child is be bullying and calling the parents all the time, trust me, and I know that parents are gonna be tired. They can say, they call me one more time, we're gonna have you got my point. So as us like a parent, we I know Miss Brown, you're not got kids yet, but us like a parents, we're gonna get tired. Like oh, the teachers call me, the principals call me, the principals call me, and I want the parents have consequence so that, because I know the education start in the house, in the home. So I know they need to something. I know me and my team, we're gonna be working more. I know you're doing the job, but we try to get something more strong so that you have that. You can say this is the consequence you're gonna get.
Right, but again, I can't do anything for parents. I can give students consequences all day long, but we still are in that mindset that we're punishing the kid for adult actions. And I totally agree with you that we need something so that the parents can know that this should not continue to occur. And if your kid continues to do this, there should be consequences. But as of right now, the way it's structured, and this is from the state, this is not from me, this is not from Pakistani, that we can't say, parents, you have to come into the school and sit with your kid, or I would do a lot of things, trust me. I would say you have to come and do community.
If they need to put a fine, put the fine.
Fine, yes.
I don't care. But I know it's coming, but it's coming from the state. I will contact the people from the state to see what we can bring us more something's wrong, because I don't want to later be late and say something, a kid killed himself,
right?
A kid go stress, things we don't want that.
Correct.
We really don't want that.
I'm with you all the way.
The report number 4 in the agenda, the report and discussion of student discipline, arrest and data. I know you sent us a lot of things.
Oh, am I good to go? Good, that's not me.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Young. Report. So who's the made that report? Report discussion.
I think that's Mr. Planet.
Mr. Planet. Miss Rita Valle, Miss Plana is with us, still with us?
I am checking on that real quick for you.
Yes, I'm right here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was on mute, so I apologize.
Thank you, Rita. Mr. Plana, how are you? Welcome back again.
Thank you.
All right, you made the last one in the agenda about report discussion of student discipline, arrest and data.
Yeah, so you have the discipline percentages. You have that information in your packet. I could, there's a lot of numbers, so I could try to show it.
I see a lot of numbers there.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers in that. I like to just give you a little summary. In looking at the overall picture of those numbers, I see that the data is very similar to last year's. I compare it to last year's. I'll give you an example of some schools. For example, Johnson School had 12 suspensions last year.
Oh, you put me
right here.
Yeah.
Not that one. I want this one. Okay. you will see that, for example, let's look at Barnum School. Barnum School last year, Barnum School had 8 suspensions. This year they had 34. So there's a slight increase there. Another school that I looked at, for example, Johnson School went from 12 to 19. Waltersville School remained the same. What you notice is that the numbers are very similar. There's a few schools that jumped by about 10 suspensions, but for the most part, most schools stayed around that range. And part of this has been because of the big push of SEL, social emotional, but most importantly, the beginning of introduction of restorative practice and the acceptance by teachers of the usage of this.
Mr. Plana, can you hold on 1 second because I'm a little lost. Where exactly you are so I can follow you?
I am looking at the whole document as a whole. I actually looked at the entire document.
I thought you was reading everything, the reading. Okay.
No, I looked at the entire document. I'm just giving you a summary.
Okay.
Basically, what you will see is that in comparison, the numbers are very similar to last year. One thing that I kept in mind when I looked at this and I was really thinking about it was that these numbers are up to March. So had these numbers gone past March, I wonder if those numbers would have been the same, or actually I would dare to say that they will be higher. Because typically as you get closer to the summer, the number of suspensions increase in a school.
Can you tell me what's the numbers I can check? Because, it's a lot of numbers. Where exactly you are so I can...
No, I was just looking at, for example, the out-of-school suspensions, for example, is look at Barnum, right? Barnum out-of-school suspension. They have 15 males, 9 females for this year. So that gives you a total of 24. 24 for this year.
Okay. All right.
Now, I looked at the report from last year, and what I saw was that they had a total of 8 altogether. So they went from 8 to 24. Now, remember, this 24 are up to March. So, I could think about this number 3, 4, 5 years ago where we were having a lot more suspensions and we decreased. But I'm careful to say that these numbers, we don't want them to go up, obviously. And so what we're looking at is to continue the work that we're doing in restorative practice as well as SEL, and that whole work to ensure that every single teacher is trained in using those strategies. You could also look at Blackham, for example. Last year they had 30 suspensions. This year in Blackham, they have a total of 37 suspensions. So there's a slight increase there, about 7 suspensions. I also looked at some of the high schools. I'll give you some examples of the high schools. I looked at all of them, but if you look at Central, for example, last year they had 351 total out-of-school suspensions. This year that number went down to 268. So it's great to see that. Other high schools, Harding, for example, last year they had 281, and this year they had 360. So there's a slight increase there. This
is coming, Mr. Plana. This is coming from last year, 2019 to March.
Yeah, the number that you see here, the report that was requested was this year's report. But I wanted to provide a comparison to last year so you could get a good picture as to how we're moving in regards to suspensions, in-school suspension, expulsions, out-of-school suspension, and such.
Okay, I don't want to get I'm confused, but this one's for the 1920. We don't have the. So you gave the one 1819.
I don't. I don't think it was placed in your packet, but I'm sure if you requested, it was provided last year in June. So that's the one that I pulled from your files, from your June files.
Okay.
That report was provided back in June when whoever was making this report was given.
Okay. Okay, but you're talking about last. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask for the last 18 to 19, so I can compare
So
about
you can
this.
compare. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that I ask you do it now, or so I had to send them email to Merida.
Definitely. Definitely. And they'll provide you with that number so that you can make the
Yeah.
comparisons
Hmm.
and see it. I think it will be good for you to see it, because to see it by itself, it doesn't mean much if you just look at just this year's numbers.
Yeah,
You
of
want to
course.
see the trends.
Exactly. I want to see the different everything, and so I can go one by one and check the percent and everything. So I
That's
understand
correct.
different.
That's correct. I could tell you that in looking at the expulsions, it has decreased greatly, the number of expulsions altogether. There's very very few. You could probably count them with one hand, basically, a couple of hands, I should say. But they're not too many, and you'll see it from this report. I believe. I don't have a grand total, but you could just see down the columns of the expulsion, which is 1, 2, 3, the fourth area in green, and you will
Hmm.
see that honestly we've done a great job in ensuring that kids stay in school and providing the services that they need altogether.
All right. So I'm gonna try to ask for the 18, 19, so I can see the different, and from there, I can see yeah. Do you have any question, Miss Brown or Miss Brown?
Nope, I'm okay.
Mr. Hernan, you have any question? You
Yes,
mute.
I do. Yes, Albert. Sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay.
Um, the only thing I would, where are we with arrests?
With arrests, I do not have that figure.
Okay.
I was just provided right now the expulsions.
Okay.
All I,
I'll,
yeah, all I have is expulsions at the moment.
no
Uh,
problem. I can bring that to facilities and security to look at that as well.
yeah.
The only with and I think some of you already probably know how I feel about when we look at these suspension reports and how true that data is and how subjective it is too. My only concern is that we always seem to look at, okay, what are the increases, but also keep in mind if you see big drops, I think that also needs to be a red flag, and we also need to look at that. For example, I don't think it will ever happen, but can you imagine if one year Harding High School will come back and say, "Oh, you know what? We had no suspensions this year." Would that be like, wow? Well, at some
Yeah.
point, I think we're always conscientious about looking at those numbers that are increasing, but at the same time, we do need to look at big numbers of decreases, because either, hey, something great is going on. Kids all of a sudden they're drinking this juice that's making them behave better. I don't know what it is, but I've been around a long time, and I've had a couple principals tell me, you know, um, in order for them to bring those numbers down, they just stop suspending. I've heard that from a few principals. I'll never mention names, but I'm just saying, sometimes that data you have to look at it subjectively, and
Yeah.
I also ask the administration to keep in mind and looking at the decreases along with the increases. That a lot of decreases should also put this red flag up as well, and look into.
Right. I agree with you 100%. I think, and being a principal at several schools, assistant principal and principal, I could tell you that, yes, indeed, that does happen. And we got to be careful about that. One thing I look at is the comparison between the regular OSS and the distinct OSS. And so that tells you the picture, like who is committing these offenses. Is it different kids, or is it the same kids? Because if we're talking about distinct incidents, we're talking about the same kid, it's not the same kid. It's different kids committing offenses versus regular, which is everybody. If I commit 3 offenses in distinct, I will be counted as 1, but in regular, I'll be counted as 3. So
Correct.
So we have to look at those 2 numbers kind of together. And what you'll notice in this picture is that those numbers are very similar in distinct and regular. Distinct will be a little lower, but for the most part, they are very similar. So that means that what we have to work on is what services do we have for the kids that are committing the offenses in order for them not to be suspended? What kind of things can we have in our own schools to help those kids realize, man, I made a mistake. How do I pay the consequences for this by staying in school rather than being suspended? And so,
do we have programs in the school to help this kid when they get suspended?
And so that's a great question. That's a great question. Some schools have people that are trained that have received a lot of restorative practices and SEL, and some other schools need to continue to train their staff. And so I know that we're beginning to we train quite a bit of people, but we have a lot of work in that sense.
Mr. Plana, sorry to interrupt you. Let's put it this way. Let me go back in my question. Do we have programs that we have staff that will help the students, to not get suspended? Because you can have the program, but you don't have the staff the way it's supposed to be. They're not doing the job the way it's supposed to be. And that's one of the big issues that what we have. That we have programs, but we don't have staff. They follow the rules and the policy to help all the students how to not get suspended.
Right. That's a great point. That's a great point. And you yourself know we don't have enough staff. So we're doing what we can with what we have. I tell you what, I see these numbers at different schools, and I looked at the numbers that I had when I was at Curial and I was at Blackrock, and I tell you, these numbers are very pretty compared to what I had back in the days when I was at Curial and at the other schools. And we have to get the staff to work with our population. And unfortunately, the times that we have to do the best we can with what we have.
And
so
get the staff to training the staff. Be sure the staff they're training the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. We need to get more. Honestly, we need to get more. For that, you need funding, and so we have to look at what we have, these programs with SEL and restorative practice, and seeing how could we work with what we have more. But you know what? I'm honestly, these numbers are I looked at them and I tell you, I'm very they look very good, except I caution it because they stop in March. So if you look at it in a continuum until the end of the year, these numbers would have been higher than what they are.
Yeah, and but we need to be ready and trying to do something, have a plan A or B and C. So when we coming back, be sure these numbers don't go up. Stay
You're right.
Or go down. No do things at the last moment, because things at the last moment they don't work very well.
Yep. You are right. You're completely right. And I think that's a great conversation to have with.
I'm going to send an email to ask you about 2000. Sorry, Ms. Brown.
No, I was going to say I agree with you, Mr. Benham, because I definitely think those numbers are going to increase when school starts, only because of all the time that they've spent away from school.
Exactly.
So we have to get that problem. Like, seriously, we need to, I don't know what it is that we can be creative and think about, but just because, these kids were, they experienced cabin fever. So it's like, they're going to go buck wild for the most part. They're going to see their friends and, just break rules just to break rules because they can, So I think, Albert, you made a very good point, how we can get ahead of that before it even happens. I don't know what that looks like, but that's a very good, valid point, because I can see that happening, being with our students out for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that some of the task force that we're working on for opening the school, those will be very good conversations to see what things can we put in place to combat exactly what you mentioned. So I agree with you, Ms. Brown, completely. I 100% agree.
No, you know you have my support, and I know my team. You're gonna have the support. Anything we can do to plan what we can do to be sure we're ready when this kid come. That we surprise them. We cannot let them surprise us.
That's right.
So, Mr. Hernan, you will bring the rest of the new committee, right? The rest and the data, right?
Yeah, I could. I could.
All right, and I'm gonna email Ms. Rita so you can now for the record about the 2018, 2019, Mr. Brown, so I can see the difference.
Good. That's good.
You have any question, Ms. Brown, Mr. Hernan? So,
No, I thank you so much, Mr. Blanes.
or
My
Mr.
pleasure,
Brown,
guys.
yeah, like always, very professional. Thank you for all the time, help us and be there for us.
100%.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Sure, yeah. So I'm gonna make a motion to join the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'm I'm seconding. Thank you so much for everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hernan. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Good
You
night,
too. God
guys.
bless you all. Bye, Ms. Rita. Thank you.
You are welcome.
All right.
Bye.
Oh, you look nice. You look nice.